Welcome to HD Nation, your guide to the best in HD content and the best in home theater gear, no matter what your budget is. I'm Patrick Norton.
Hi, and I'm Robert Heron.
We got a lot of great stuff coming up in today's show, but surprising and amazing, we actually stole this out of the Rev3 Games Lab.
Stole?
Hi, Adam. Hi, Tara. Hi,
Say
Zach.
hello to the X-Bone.
Hi, Anthony. Yeah, well, basically this is the Xbox One. PlayStation 4 launched last week. Xbox One launched this week. We've had some early questions. Are they any good as home theater devices? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. Right now, Sony is considering supporting DLNA, basically media streaming, if you have a large media collection, to the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4 doesn't have a red laser, but it does have a blue laser. Blu-rays use blue lasers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or violet.
Or violet. Over that end of the color spectrum. But basically, the PlayStation 4 has a whole lot of shaders, 1152 to the 768 on the Xbox One, which means it has a whole lot of graphics power, and it's all being thrown at the screen, which is a good thing, right? Actually, it's got a 50% advantage in graphics processing power in terms of the cores over the Xbox One. This is good for gamers. Two, Sony didn't really give a crap about anything other than games and playing Blu-rays for the PlayStation 4. So if you want a Blu-ray player that plays games, the PlayStation 4 is perfect. It will not play DVDs. It will not play CDs. It will not stream media from your home server yet, although Sony is considering adding DLNA.
Those old legacy formats need to go away anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah. It has to have Blu-ray, though. I'm sorry.
I do like
I draw my line in the sand right there.
New PlayStation controller is really nice, and something that the Xbox One and the PlayStation have in common is that you ain't seeing crap in terms of graphics performance yet, because developers, as always, are months, if not a year or two, behind the launch of the hardware in the new console. That said, so PlayStation 4, Blu-ray player, game player, and of course, oh, I forgot, it's got Netflix and Amazon Prime and all of your sort of favorite pretty much all the classic streaming apps.
There are some core functionality, basically media streaming and certain media file support that seems to be not quite there yet.
Not even considered in the PlayStation 4.
Hopefully coming soon, but no word yet.
So the Xbox One obviously has the Kinect, and it's kind of funny because we're like what the Kinect sees. There's like 10%, I want to say 10% of the cores in the GPU on the Xbox One are basically sitting and keeping an eye on the Kinect, right? So it's funny, like, look, it's picking up our camera operator as a guest in the back, and you start playing around, and you can be like, oh, yes, it really can see you in the dark. The Kinect One's kind of creepy when you start looking at the spectrums of the light it looks at, and think about the fact that it's on 24/7. So we can turn all the lights out, and look, kids.
Oh, it sees in the dark, no doubt.
It sees in the dark. It's kind of funny because you can actually see the...
And I want to guess, too, the color coding is for the depth perception in terms of how deep is the object within the scene it's looking at, and things like that as well. It's kind of cool that it actually gives you that Kinect view of that. And, of course, built-in stereo mic within, I believe it's a stereo field array mic within the unit itself, which, when you're using services like Netflix and others, you can use your voice to control the service very easily. Yeah, well, it works surprisingly well on the Xbox 360. Yeah, I'd be curious to see if they've done some improvements in terms of functionality with the Xbox One.
I should also point out that I am invisible to machines and Robert isn't, so our results with things that involve you going like this to change channels are slightly different at times.
In a quiet room.
In a quiet room,
it works surprisingly well.
Yeah, actually,
you're navigating your titles and saying specific content, and it plays, and I love that kind of interactivity, especially if you're in the kitchen with your hands all dirty or doing whatever, and you can't reach for the remote and end up with a fungy-looking remote. So
Xbox One on, play mayhem. But so right now we're actually showing a Spears and Munsell calibration DVD up here. So it plays DVDs. It's going to play CDs. It plays Blu-rays quite well. If you're looking really closely at our highly compressed stream on the internet and going like, I think I detect some issues with this. This is actually a 4K monitor we're going to be reviewing later in the show. So don't be judging graphics qualities based on a DVD being upscaled to 4K.
22 times the resolution, something like that, roughly. A lot more pixels on the screen than with the content being displayed.
So there's HDMI pass-through ports on the back for your satellite or cable television. Obviously, I can't test that at home because I cut the cable years ago and lopped the satellite dish off the roof. But by pretty much everybody saying one guide is cool. It makes it really easy to find programs. There's really not much in the way of DVR functionality on that. I really like the idea of the app channel integration, which is, if you are subscribed to Hulu, it will show up in the one guide. That's pretty cool. But all of this, and on both platforms, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, it is all very early, and we expect to see a lot of change in the none too distant futures. It's Microsoft's Play 2 standard for DLNA, so it's kind of a Microsoft version of DLNA, which doesn't exactly thrill me.
Should work great within a Windows 8 environment, I'm sure, and Windows 7.
Yeah. But if you have a whole bunch of old stuff, you might find it a little frustrating. We have not had as much time as I would like to test either this or the PlayStation 4, but generally speaking, they both play games really well. The launch titles are a little bit better on the Xbox One. The Xbox One is doing a lot more in terms of being a complete home theater device, and obviously thinking that cable and satellite are a big deal and integrating that. Basically, this wants to be your gateway to your HDTV.
The HDMI pass-through is pretty cool stuff, and I can't wait to see what they'll be doing with that, because that's something that Google TV has offered on their products for a while, yet it never really seemed to go anywhere with that. And combine that with a very, very quiet set-top box, at least as far as it's sitting right beside me doing its regular menu stuff. I'm not hearing hardly a peep on that. I have to put my ear right on it to hear the fan
we're also not playing
whirring.
any games yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. We gotta get something that generates some GPU heat.
I fire up Forza, and it's going to get much like Forza.
Yeah.
Gotta love Forza. Netflix support, all of your basic applications are available in there. It's a good thing. We should actually we should stop talking about this.
Okay.
I'm done. I'm sorry.
It's over.
I do a mic drop
here,
with the controller, but Tara and Adam would kill me.
I got something for you, though. Now, from the We All Saw This Coming department, Variety is reporting that the National Football League and Major League Baseball are asking the U.S. Supreme Court to hear their challenge to the legality of Aereo, an online live TV service. Now, the sports franchises are claiming that the supposed redistribution of its content circumvents their ability to collect license fees that are paid by cable and satellite outlets.
Huh?
Now, Aereo is quick to point out that each of the subscribers to their service are using a DTV antenna to capture that free-to-air broadcast content that should be considered, quote, a legal private transmission and not a public performance in violation of the Copyright Act. So, they're going to go at this quite hard, you can tell, because there's a lot of money involved. And NFL and MLB are basically saying, look, if you don't help us in this respect, we may be forced then to move all of our content to pay cable instead of having any of it being broadcast over the free-to-air broadcast system.
Wait a minute, doesn't Aereo lock you down to local broadcasts in your area?
That's what I thought.
Wouldn't those be the same delete expletive games that are already blacked out that I can't watch, even though I can't buy a ticket because I can't afford it anymore?
But what if it's just outside of your range? I'm wondering, is there any sharing of other reception involved? Like, say I'm not getting good reception of my local station, but my neighbor a mile away is.
Okay.
That's something about Aereo I'm not sure about. Are they actually sharing other people's reception streams if one's better than another?
We should check to see whether or not, because the last 2 or 3 times we checked, we have not been able to get Aereo anywhere in the California scene. If you're using Aereo, do us a favor, email us hdnation@revision3.com. We're curious to hear what you have to say. But it's mostly whenever I hear at this point about anything involving MLB or the NFL, I automatically assume they're getting even greedier than they were, and they just want the Supreme Court to decide that they can have all the crack distribution rights in North America and all the crank distribution rights, because that's exactly how crappy I feel about pretty much the NFL and the MLB and them shifting stadiums around, and basically this whole stadium thing, I'm fed up with it.
That may be.
I'm fed up with that. I'm fed up with billions of dollars. I'm fed up with misbehaving NFL players. I'm done with it.
As far as the
sport, no NFL in my house.
The sport itself, perhaps. But I will say the MLB app on my mobile device is something
awesome.
I can't live without that.
Okay. Well, maybe, I don't know. It's like the Supreme Court won't deal with the NSA. They're really going to deal with whether or not, you can move free broadcasts around after
our priorities are out of whack. Yes.
Yes. From the you may want to think twice before connecting your HDTV to the internet department, a UK LG TV owner found an LG produced video that mentioned they collect usage data on LG smart televisions. What? Yes, LG owner finds related setting in TV menu and turns feature off. This is up on the
Dr. Beats blog.
Yeah.
Or Dr. Beats blog.
drbeat.blogspot.uk. The owner monitors traffic after making adjustments and notices every channel change results in a phone home event. He also notices that it reports contents of connected storage devices. What?
Yeah.
The owner notes that the IP address listing for the data wasn't responding, but it could be enabled without much effort or notice. And the owner provides a list of IP addresses to block via your router setup to prevent the TV from revealing viewing habits and the contents of your external storage. LG, WTF. Now,
I have a feeling everyone's doing this if you really read the licensing agreements. Like when you fire up a brand new TV nowadays, if it's a smart TV, it's going to ask you to check the boxes to say you agree to this agreement that you never read. I'm sure there's some fine print in there that says specifically what they're going to do is
we can track everything you do or connect to our television.
Collect that kind of information. And there's a couple easy fixes. One, don't connect your TV to the internet, number one, unless you're doing something like a firmware update, and then disconnect it. Number two would be he does provide that list of specific IP addresses that could change, but you could add those to your router and then block that kind of communication back and forth between your TV and the people trying to understand what it is you like to watch on your TV. The connected devices part was a little freaky, where it's actually scanning like a connected hard drive to see what you have. And he did a pretty thorough investigation using great tools to get it done. And
what's that? It's a lawyer wanting to know why you have a copy of this movie on your hard drive. Prove it! In the 72 pages of
but that's a good
observation. License you approved. Yeah, it's really freaky, man.
And just remember, if you are using the services built into your TV, chances are some of that information is being fed back to whoever's providing you the content or the manufacturer itself, where they will sell that information, hopefully in an anonymized fashion, but you never know.
I love my dumb projector. We got this email from Kenny, who writes in, Dear HD Nation, hello Patrick and Robert. I've been a fan of the show since day one. Thank you, and enjoyed it a lot. My question is, do you guys think Blu-ray disc transfers have gotten better since Blu-ray first came out in 2006? I can remember the early Blu-ray disc transfers like Superman Returns, The Fifth Element, Gangs of New York, etc., having not so great transfers. Thank goodness, though, that The Fifth Element, Gangs of New York were reissued, but Superman Returns has not gotten a new transfer. Please, Warner Brothers, reissue that disc. Do you think Blu-ray transfers are now much better or about the same? Thanks, love the show, and keep up the good work with HD Nation. Sincerely, Kenny from Ohio.
Kenny!
I can remember you and I sitting in the HDTV testing labs when you were still working at PC Mag, and I was still doing, well, we were still doing DLTV, and we were looking at the first round of Blu-ray titles. Great movies. The transfers were a joke. As in, somebody went, hey, we built the hardware, we need movies. And then
there were format wars still going on, so nobody was really paying attention to the quality of what they were actually pushing out.
You and I were, but it was funny because the HD DVD, the original round of HD DVD titles were flawless transfers. The Blu-ray transfers that first came out were a joke. Like, they grabbed the distribution print, scratches, hair, all sorts of awful. They did get better, and in some cases, like you pointed out, are even re-released with new transfers and or encodes, and that can make a big difference.
I rebought the Fifth Element disc again to get the better re-encode of it. Now, most video formats do improve over time. It's usually a combination, though, of improvements in the video encoder hardware, the folks in the back end actually making the video samples, also how they're actually capturing movies, too, and scanning them and things like that. And it's also the efficiency as well as the decoding side of it, like the hardware you buy might be doing a better job of dealing with that data in a faster rate where it can then do a little additional processing to make sure it's just spot on. Now, that increased efficiency does result in smaller file sizes, or it will enable room for even greater quality and or more extras, which is something we've all kind of gotten used to one way or another.
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm a big fan of some of the things that have been done recently, where they've done basically just the movie on a 50 gig Blu-ray and no extras, and then they basically throw all of the space they have at the quality. It's funny, we have seen studios unscrew really bad early releases. 2008 patent Blu-ray, people were torn. It looked so much better than the DVD, but it was legendary for like digitally processing all the grain and a lot of the detail out of the print. The color was a little bit odd too. You know, it looked like somebody sort of cartoonized it. 2012, they reissued it and fixed most of that. Most films, though, are not sort of tentpole classics that a studio thinks of as being really, really important. And most only get a single shot at Blu-ray. And the amount of care with a transfer is almost directly related to A, is it already digital? B, how much money the studio thinks they can make from it? And C, if it's a prestige title. The Avengers, hey, it's already digital. All they have to do is compress it to a 50 gigabyte disc. Non-digital films that the studio expects to make money from, if you're lucky, you'll get at least a 4K transfer, and hopefully nothing too ugly with digital noise reduction and color palette. The Wizard of Oz is the benchmark standard of excellence. They did an 8K scan. They basically did an 8K scan of the 3 separate Technicolor negatives, manually aligned them, corrected them, fixed errors, fixed scratches, just utterly restored the film. The color.
State of the art.
State of the art.
As good as they could possibly do it today is how they did it.
And in that situation, you can realize you've never actually seen this movie because you did not see an original print in a theater in like 1930 whatever. And all of a sudden, the entire movie looks completely different, and you understand why people were so excited about it when it came out. tons of movies from our childhood in the 80s and 90s, churn them and burn them, and it shows.
Yeah.
You know, do they have a good negative? Do they have a bad negative? Do they care if they have a good or bad negative? Are they trying to rush the job? Is somebody actually paying attention when the transfer is being made and the encode being done? Is somebody doing anything? A lot of movies in the 70s and 80s did not have surround sound soundtracks, and sometimes they go, hey, you're an intern? Make a surround sound out of this. Yeah, and that's when we get sort of pained.
Standards and quality.
And quality. And they're all over the map.
Hey, 13-tier tweets at HD Nation. Should I wait for 4K content to become the new standard before buying a projector, or is 1080p sticking around for a while?
1080p is sticking around for a long time. This comes down to how bad do you need a new projector? Are you watching videos on an iPad and just can't stand it anymore? You know, we pointed out, the longer you wait, the more you get for less money. It's like buying a GPU or a console. You know, and it's kind of funny. We also had James, another tweet with James was tweeting at HD Nation at Best Buy this week. 4K Samsung 55F9000 costs only 20% more than the similar HD Samsung 55F8000. So we'll talk about that TV in a second.
Yeah.
But all 4K right now is 30 hertz. Wait.
Yeah.
Wait for 60 hertz 4K. Unless you're buying an $umpteen-thousand screen and projector that has an upgrade path from 30 to 60 hertz, or you're buying a computer monitor that already does 60 hertz, 1080p is going to be the spec for years. Blu-ray, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, they are all 1080p. Yes, Netflix is experimenting with 4K. YouTube's been puttering with it for years. Sony has a few 4K titles if you have a Sony 4K HDTV. But think about how many amazing Blu-rays or movies aren't on Blu-ray yet, and they aren't available to stream online yet. I wouldn't hold my breath for a lot of them to hit 4K in the next 5 years. And 4K, hardly a lock at this stage.
That, and there are premium services like Red's Machines where you can get those as streaming services, but those are going to be premium price in terms of not only the player itself, but the video, each video that you buy. And with the TVs themselves, well, it's just, you know, it's there for what it is. I wouldn't be in a rush for the resolution improvement until the content's there. You're right. And I wouldn't go any further than that. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but when you're watching 1080p content on a 4K TV, you're really not going to see much of a difference, if any. You shouldn't see any compared to watching that same 1080p content on a regular 1080p television. So until you have the content that can take advantage of the resolution, and as far as the 30-60 hertz input goes, well, all your 4K TVs, the screens are running at 60 hertz. It's the input that won't accept a 60 hertz signal in most cases. Now, some manufacturers do have upgrade options, some don't. So that's kind of the minefield you're playing in right now, and if you're shopping for that 4K technology at the moment, is in terms of what signals it will accept, or if there is an upgrade path down the road that you can actually take advantage of. So it's early, and you are playing beta tester totally at this point.
Now, if you are obsessed with a 4K HD TV, what do we think of Samsung's latest?
I think it's damn fine. Actually, it's pretty good. There's a couple of niggling things I'll say about it, but this is the Samsung UN55F9000. This is the 9000 series 4K Ultra HD smart television. We're talking 3840 by 2160 pixel resolution. That's 2160p for short. 55-inch screen, actually a little bit less than that, so we're talking about 80 pixels per inch. Double that of a 1080p TV. And we're talking, as far as inputs go, 4 HDMI, including MHL support, 3 USB connections, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi built in, serial port for home control systems. As it sits right here, it's about 52 pounds with the stand. I think that one will do. I don't think I have that one set up yet, sorry. Now, design features. The stand on this thing is their arc style stand. It's actually just a nice curved piece of metal. Doesn't provide swivel, but it allows the TV to sit very low. As far as bezel design, it's about a ½ inch wide with down-firing speakers. On the top here is a pop-up camera, kind of like that. And that input box, it actually uses a separate input box on this one called the One Kinect box. This will be your path to 60K 4K, or 60 hertz 4K input.
Oh, that's a big deal.
That's how Samsung's doing it in their case. They're having these external boxes. It's like, look, when we get that settled, we'll get you a new box, or you'll be able to purchase one to do the upgrade if you want that 60 hertz input.
So basically, the brains are in this box.
Essentially, and it's got a custom cable that sends it right back to the TV behind it. It also includes 4 pairs of 3D glasses, that smart touch remote Patrick was just handling. I do like that external box though.
It's so smart.
It's nice not having a ton of cables connected to the back of a TV, and that's one way to do it. Now, as far as Samsung's premium 9000 series TVs, this one also features Instaport. It's a great technology we talk about all the time. It allows for when you're switching between the HDMI inputs, less than 1 second. And compare that to your older HDTVs when you're trying to change inputs. You could be waiting up to 6-7 seconds, which doesn't sound like a long time, but if you're doing that day in and day out, it gets pretty old. As far as motion rate performance, in terms of motion clarity or motion resolution, this TV features the best that Samsung currently offers. They call it 1200 clear motion rate, and it also features the best local dimming system that they have in terms of their backlight technology. They call it micro dimming ultimate. This effectively will hopefully, when you're looking at contrasted content where the dark patches of the screen are really inky dark and the bright patches can still remain nice and bright, providing that just pop in the image that you're expecting. Now, as far as benchmark results go, I was quite pleased overall. Now, right out of the, I do have high expectations though for any TV at this price point, including the F9000. Even though it did receive a $500 price reduction this week, it's still not a cheap TV. Even having that sweet selection of built-in features really does mean less though if the picture quality isn't there. And in this case, I always begin my measurements using the TV's built-in cinema or movie picture preset. It's super easy to enable. It's just a preset you just hit. And it usually, it's the picture preset that's closest to spec if you're trying to get a calibrated image on the screen that looks as close as possible to what the director or the filmmaker was producing with that calibrated monitor in the editing bay. Looking at the CalMan 5 grayscale results though for the F9000, the movie preset isn't too bad really. The average AR of 231, 2.31, anything under 3 is considered good. Lower is always better. The primary color mixing result is kind of this S-shaped curve, and it indicates there is some manipulation going on. It should be more flat than that. It's basically saying that in the lower section at least, reds are dominating a little bit, and as you can see as we get into the brighter grays up to pure white, it's actually blue is taking over. And that basically will affect overall color performance when you're looking at it. And it sounds like somebody's doing construction upstairs. Now, my second pick here shows why I really like fine-tuning a quality television set. They tune up pretty darn well. I got the average error rate here down to 0.9, which is great. A much flatter color response in terms of how it mixes red, blue, and green to achieve that grayscale. This just shows you an overall, basically, of how it's going to be able to mix any colors. This much improved color consistency really makes the picture look more realistic. Now, in terms of color, out of the box, here is the quick color check I did. The average error is still under 3, but you can see before that the grayscale errors were actually a little bit above 3, and a couple of the colors were a little high there. But overall, things are somewhat in the ballpark, but post-calibration, boom. I got the average error down to 1.43. The colors track right, pretty darn close actually. Nicely tightened up overall. And this is really one of the best color accuracy results I've seen from any LCD television this year. That LG LA7400 was the other one that really stood out in my mind as one of the best color performing TVs I've seen in 2013. Now, my Leo Bodner lag tester reported that in movie mode, we had 122.5 milliseconds, which doesn't really matter if you're watching a movie or something about delay. But when you switched it over to game mode, it cut that just about in half to 62.1 milliseconds. Now, for viewing exams, like I mentioned before, there really were no visual differences with Blu-ray content compared to a 1080p television. Now, 4K video, it sure looks detailed on this set. Now, backlight control options are a highlight of Samsung's premium TVs, the 8000 and 9000 series in particular. That motion compensation, motion estimation, the stuff that makes either the smoothing effect that you may or may not like, most TVs provide on-off controls. Off, basically, if you do turn it off to get rid of that smoothing effect, you lose motion resolution, but you do lose that smoothing effect that can be annoying as heck. Samsung also provides a backlight mode on this TV in their 8000 series that improves that motion resolution without that smoothing effect. And the only downside to that really would be that you do lose a little bit of light output with it, but you can make other adjustments to bring that back up. And it's really a great way to, get away from that smoothing artifact yet still retain terrific motion imagery. Now, I have to say, the F9000 delivered a beautifully calibrated picture, along with 4K future-proofing for the price. Now, the good news is that this TV in the last week has dropped $500, making it an even better value. And while this set isn't quite ready for 4K 60Hz input, Samsung has indicated that they will be upgrading that One Kinect box to bring that feature when it is made available. And the only other thing that stood out to me when I was watching this TV was with letterbox content. I did know that there was a little bit of glow in the corners on this particular set. I find that can be kind of random because if sets are moved a little bit and the frames are flexed at all on any LCD TV, you can end up with some differences in terms of how that backlight is shining through the screen or not.
Well, let's go back to the previous question for a second. So thumbs up, fantastic 4K TV.
Totally.
$3,500 for the 55-inch version.
Now $3,000. Just had a price drop.
Really? Okay, you're right. Absolutely right. $3,000 for the 55-inch version.
And not and just a slight premium. I think it's like 20% more than the 8000 series 1080p TV.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. So, you know, you're looking at like a 65-inch 4K is running 4500. The 55-inch is 3000.
Yeah, that's the 65-inch version.
And if we go to the 8000, you're looking at 3300 for a 65-inch and 2500 for the 55-inch. At this point, given that there is an upgrade path or the promise of an upgrade path, are you more comfortable with recommending this as a alternative? I mean, the VIG isn't that bad. Is there going to be any 4K content other than super cool files created by the manufacturer anytime soon?
If money is an object or an issue, and that even that couple $100 premium, a few $100 is too,
500.
You'd rather spend that somewhere else, then go for the 1080p set and maybe get a bigger screen out of the deal. That would be more important to me than having the 4K resolution.
You can get a 65-inch, a fantastic 65-inch 1080p screen, or for the same amount of money, for $200 more, you can get a 55-inch 4K screen.
That, and we've also noticed these are beautiful 4K videos, and we looked at the bit rate on these too, and they're running at about 20-some megabit.
Yeah.
And even with that bit rate at this resolution, we're still seeing compression artifacts. So Blu-ray movies can burst up to 40 megabit. We need to see 4K content looking at least 40 megabit with hopefully H.265 to really get the quality that we want to see. Although this looks beautiful, this is a lot of very curated shots and content that's you know,
that's something we didn't
set up well for this screen.
Something we didn't discuss before is 4K is so many pixels. The data streams are so dense.
8 megapixel.
They essentially have created an entirely new compression scheme to deal with the massive amount of data that creates a decent looking 4K screen.
That's something we should get into too. Talking about H.265 and some of the advantages it brings too, because there's some great color stuff and detail stuff in addition to just straight resolution.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of it at CES last year. We'll see a bunch more of it this year.
Without a doubt.
Really good Black Friday question from Wildcard Foxy, who says, at HD Nation for Black Friday, can you recommend which brands of TVs to avoid no matter what the price? White, Westinghouse, Element, etc.? That's a really good question, actually.
I agree. My advice would be to make sure that you are getting the tech you want, low price or not. Read the reviews of your potential acquisition and come up with a plan B if that special deal vanishes before you get there, or the person in front of you get the very last one. I'm a little leery of closeout items, something that's no longer being manufactured and they're already pushing a brand new version of it. Sure, you might be able to get a deal on the last one, but just make sure it's something you want compared to the price on the new product that you might be able to get for not much more.
Yeah, or for less. You know, Best Buy's gotten really good about their prices recently, but they have a lot of open box stuff or demo items that came off the shelf, and oftentimes you can buy a new model for very little more money and not have to deal with the lack of manual packaging, the missing volume knob, or whether or not somebody trashed it before it got to you. Like, I don't want to single out Best Buy on this, but their open box deals have gone from okay to miserable, at least in my experience in the last couple years. And you know, I love refurbished. I also like buying online. Know your prices before you get to a Black Friday place and buy something and be like, you know, I bought the obscure 1960s television brand or camera, or the obscure, you know what I mean? If it's a 1960s, it's possible for somebody you've never heard of to make a great HD TV. It's not the way to bet, right? Because nobody's making a lot of money off of these. So you know.
I have had experience with Westinghouse TVs. I have generally had no problems with them whatsoever. Element's one brand I'd like to get in because I believe it's manufactured here in the United States, and it seems to be a low price leader. The Seiki TVs we talk about quite a bit. There's another one that seems to be a quality brand. My 4K set at home still functions just perfectly. And there's good support by the company itself. That might be one quick check for any company, is go to their website, look at their support page for the particular model you're looking at, and see if they've done any kind of update for it, or go to AVS Forum or somewhere like that and look up that particular TV and get a vibe from the people who own it, whether or not it was a good deal or not at the time. Because there might be the gotcha that just says, oh, forget it. Or it might be, you know what, the price is right, just do it. And Black Friday is as much of a sport as anything in terms of getting up early, getting to the store, fighting the crowds, and trying to score one of those super discounted deals, but that's the whole point, is to get you there. And I'm not into playing that game, but I understand why people do. It's you got to do something after eating all that turkey and stuffing.
Mail order, people. Mail order. That's it for this episode of HD Nation. Do us a favor, check us out at youtube.com/HDNation and subscribe at youtube.com/HDNation or revision3.com/HDNation. And please email us your questions, your comments, or your suggestions. You can post those down below.
Hey, and until next time, thank you for watching.